The almost strike 2023 Six Nations.
The almost strike, yeah.
Did the other Welsh lads shit out? Did they bottle it?
The strike was a weird one. Really, really weird, because obviously the Six Nations, always like the rugby in that Six Nations wasn't really relevant. It was almost like a sideshow for us. So I think the most disappointing thing about the strike, from not really from my point of view, because I didn't really have a foot in the camp, because it was not affecting me in any way, shape or form.
You were calling it in from the Prem, weren't you? There we go.
South of France, actually.
Sorry, you're already at Toulon. Yeah.
So
you cleared out Saints. Off you go.
Yeah. So I suppose from my point of view, I didn't really have a foot in either camp, but I felt like the right thing to do was make a stand. And I think, like I said, the most disappointing thing for me was that at the start of the week, we all agreed and we all had a principle.
What was it?
Well, basically that we wanted the variable contracts removed, so that it wasn't 100% of your wage was guaranteed, not 80% and then 20% in play-in bonuses or win bonuses, whatever. We wanted the 60 cap rule gone, and we wanted a seat on the WRPA, which they were always going to give us that anyway. So we ended up with 25 caps and an option of variable contracts, fixed variable contracts. So for us, I don't know, it just felt like at the start of the week we were really together and we had a plan. And then all of a sudden, it's like anything in these type of environments. As soon as you get one or two creaking, you then get two or three or four or five, and it just almost became a divided camp again. So,
and on that then, so what interests me is, how did those little cliques start? Like, was it some people that were in contract negotiations? Were the people behind the scenes that were promising stuff to some individual players to try and crack that group mentality?
I just think that the union basically threatened that. They said, look, if the game doesn't go ahead on Saturday, it's 10 million quid they're going to lose. And all of a sudden then the game is in real, financial difficulty.
Yeah.
Game in Wales could have gone bust, etc., etc. And our point was, well, it's quite an easy fix then. You get rid of the 25 cap rule and you sort of guarantee the 100% wages.
Yeah.
So for us, it was like, well, if the game's going to go bust and it's two relatively small things, we thought, well, that's a no-brainer. But then as soon as that was sort of threatened, you could see a few of the boys thinking, right, well, am I going to get paid at the end of the month? Am I going to get, my contract renewed, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah.
So I think from that point of view, that's when it just started to break up a little bit. And by the end of the week, it was almost a little bit like a damp squid, in terms of we started out with a real strong process. And even when we walked out of the sponsors dinner, which we agreed was going to be a bit of a statement, it kind of like we showed up for the first half an hour and then just sort of walked out quite weak, really. So I don't know, it just felt like a bit of a damp squid by the end, off the back of really sort of trying to get a strong stance. And we weren't doing it, like I said, I didn't care about what happened really, because I didn't have any interest in it in terms of whether it was my contract or anything like that. But I just felt like it was a process for the boys at the regions, the boys in the semi-pro clubs, everybody in Wales really, and we missed out on an opportunity. And I remember a couple of us saying at the end of it, just saying, look, we've missed a huge chance, or not missed a huge chance, but basically we can't complain about anything again now. We've had a chance to really try and implement something, and we didn't take the chance. And who knows if it was if it had gone through, would it have been the right decision or not? I don't know. But it felt like in that moment, it felt like we all felt a bit deflated, and we all felt a little bit beaten a little bit, you know what I mean? But I think, look, the game's gone ahead, and hopefully things will start to improve in the next, year or two. But clearly at the minute, things are tough for Wales. Yeah.
Who was leading the conversations? Were you near the top of the tree?
I suppose from my end, yeah, I was more in the side of,
let's take it to the fucking wire.
Let's take it to, no, I suppose it was, we could have done with you, Goody, actually. And you, Jim. It'd have been a good crew.
I fold like a penknife, mate.
No. His nickname was Deck Chair over there.
But I think what my role was, I suppose my role, when you haven't got a vested, or you haven't got anything to lose, effectively, you're able to maybe say things that perhaps people who have got things to lose or got more on the line would be afraid to say.
Yeah.
But I was really impressed with some of the young guys. A young guy at Cardiff, Teddy Williams, came up with some brilliant points, really intelligent, really sort of thought-provoking, and was really, really impressive in those things. Him in particular was incredibly well received there by the boys. So it was just, I suppose a few of the senior players were just leading that, and then it just became a little bit fractured by the end of the week. And I think by the end of Thursday afternoon or whatever, it was just everyone was just beaten by the end of it, and we just almost just gave up effectively. Yeah.
What about Gats? How was he with you? And
Yeah,
we'll
I
get
mean,
on to the bit where you
tough
talk
spot
about
for
him as well.
Gats, right?
Yeah, it's not. I've said this in the book as well. It's not easy for Gats because he's an employee of the WIU. He's also the head coach, so it's kind of you're stuck in the middle. I think where we were, if he'd have put his weight behind it, it would have maybe had a real impact on whether it would be the union or whether it just made us feel like, right, we've got somebody as powerful as Gats in our corner there. So I think probably Gats, like I said, was in a difficult position, but probably didn't put a foot in either camp and just sort of sat on the fence a little bit, which probably didn't help either cause. So for us, it was kind of like, again, it was a bit of an option where we could have really gone, if we'd have had his support, we could have really sort of maybe gone all in a little bit. But we probably
Hard for him though when you employ.
Yeah, no, it is. It is hard. It is hard. But it was just a bit of a mess of a week.
Yeah.
The whole week was just a mess from the organisation of the training week to cancelling sessions to meetings. Basically, we had 50 meetings and about 3 training sessions leading into England home. So carnage week. And as like I said, there's loads in the book about it, but it was just exhausting. I remember I came home Thursday evening and I just absolutely crashed. Like just like when you're mentally just exhausted. Couldn't even look at your phone to respond to messages and things. So strange week.
It's like you at the weekend, Jim. Absolutely fucked.
Yeah, and I can't wait to get back on the tools on a Monday. I've said that before. And we had Gats on last season and he was brilliant, but you might have mentioned it to him or us that the relationship wasn't what it all seemed. And it was good, but not what it all seemed. Maybe you can elaborate.
I think it's important to state that it wasn't, I think some people have taken what's in the book as being our relationship was really volatile and it would blow up all the time. And that was anything further from the truth. But what the relationship was, I'm sure you guys have had it with coaches and in certain teams and players. It was a very professional relationship. And I felt like that was fine. And Gats has got a certain way of doing things. But I just felt like a couple of examples for me, which really epitomized the relationship, was when we beat England in 2015. And, I'm my own worst.
Can we not talk about that?
Sorry.
What, the one at Twickenham in the World Cup?
Yeah, the World Cup, that one, yeah.
Where the big arena was massive. Yeah, I can't wait.
And, I'm my own harshest critic. But I thought after that game, if you're ever going to get a pat on the back, may have been after that evening.
Yeah. No.
And I just remember, I thought wrong. And I thought, and I remember doing the post-match press conference because Gats had spoken. I was coming in to do man of the match. And the interviewer asked, what about that performance from Dan Biggar? And I just remember his response saying, oh, yeah, when he kept us in the game and 2 really good performances off the tee from both kickers. And I was just thinking at that point, I was just like, how difficult would it have been to have just given a bit of praise? And like I said, I've spoke about this. I was in negotiations at the time for signing a new deal, and there was a couple of interests from a couple of French teams, and maybe that was playing on his mind as well. He's a calculated man, Gats, clever man, intelligent man. But I just thought that was kind of, could you have just said, right, you know what, Dan was bloody good that night. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But maybe he did it because he feels that you react better.
Yeah, I've got no doubt. But and I've got no problem. And I think that's, certain players you need to put an arm around.
Yeah.
Certain players you need a bit of a.
That's me. I need an arm.
Certain players you need a bit of a kick of the arse. Goody, would that have been you?
A bit of both.
You took a kick in, didn't you?
A bit of both, to be honest.
Most days.
Yeah. Bit of both.
What did you need?
I think I needed probably a little bit of both. I think sometimes, I didn't get much of the love in, but I felt I probably responded quite well to those types of moments. But I just felt in that moment there where I was probably on absolute cloud 9, I probably felt, just one,
that reaffirmation for him, just to say you're the boy.
Yeah. So the thing with Gats though, and I've spoken to a few people about him and how I had an experience with him when they tried to sign me to go to Wasps. He keeps people at arm's length, doesn't he? So he hasn't got many people. I don't know, like Warby, would he have been someone that would have been super close to him? Or it's the same. No, I think that's how he is.
That's
Alan Wynne.
That's his. No, again, nobody
doesn't lavish. He doesn't lavish praise, does he?
No, and I think that's kind of that route or that setup we had was very much like that. You had to earn your stripes, and I think that's something that they're finding quite difficult at the minute. Is life's, the world we live in at the minute is very different, isn't it? And you've got to be.
Well, he said that, didn't he?
Yeah, you've got to be careful about how you maybe rev up the youngsters or maybe have a go and things like that. And I suppose, myself, John Fox Davis, Lee Halfpenny, Liam Williams, Tiprick, Warburton, we were sort of the ones who just were able to bear it. You know what I mean? And I think they knew that the characters they were dealing with. But I just felt sometimes, just now and again, after really good performances and big moments, could have been that. And then probably a similar thing happened in that, well, not long ago, last summer in the World Cup, where we played just before the World Cup warm-up games against England, and Faz had got sent off, and there was a bit of an incident and things like that. And then the big news in the week was kind of Gatz's, column in the newspaper, which he sort of wanted to use to have a little bit of a pop at me for my reaction to Faz getting sent off. So
what did he exactly say? I mean,
Andrew, you set the scene, and then we'll let you and Biggs go off, and you're Owen Farrell in this, and Dan Biggar, you're Dan Biggar. Yeah,
there we go. Right.
Just sat here, look at
you
the
just have a
pictures.
listen.
We'll just imagine what it looks like.
Rob, pull your trousers up.
Go on then, Andrew.
So, set the scene. It is England against Wales at Twickenham, and cast your minds back, pre-World Cup. Wales get the ball. Liam Williams makes a lovely step. Does Elliot Daly, starts breaking up the touchline, offload. Tame Basham gets the ball.
Great memory.
Yeah.
You really have.
He's just piling up the touchline, and there's Faz. And Faz absolutely wabooms in with his shoulder to the head. Play carries on. No one really knows anything's gone down. Basham's holding his head a little bit. I think he gets up, Basham, doesn't he? Play carries on. Eventually, I think there was a knock-on or something, and all I see is Biggs holding his head because he's frustrated with whoever's knocked the ball on or whatever. And Wales have made their way up the pitch, and eventually TMO calls in and says, you need to have a look at this shot. So we're at that point now where the referee's blown his whistle. Dan Biggar, over to you.
So obviously in the big screen comes up in Twickenham, and you just glance up and you can sort of see what's coming. And I've just instinctively, as soon as he sort of made contact with Basham's head, I've just instinctively shouted, not particularly at Faz or anybody really, I've just instinctively shouted, fucking hell.
And Owen took umbrage with this and shouted, "Stop fucking complaining, Biggs!"
So I then told him to fuck off, and then he said,
"What are you going to do about it, you soft cunt?"
And that was when it kind of escalated, and I said, well, I told him to fuck off, marched over and said, word for word, I said, who the hell do you think you are going around cheap shotting everyone just because the England lads don't have the balls to stand up for you? Doesn't So that was
two alphas, absolute on-field alphas.
And I think it was just like that was the moment really where both of us didn't want to let anything go. We both basically just wanted to get one up on each other type of thing. And I think the really frustrating thing for me, which I've said, is I do a column with the Mail, and I sort of when I signed up to do it, I made sure I went to the union and just said, look, I'm happy to sort of give this to you guys. If there's anything which you're not happy with in there, please just tell me and we'll work around it, and we'll work together. So for me, when I went to that, and there was a couple of lines which they wanted to take out in terms of not making as big a deal of it as it could have been. And then for me then to have gone to them, given them the option, taking a few bits and pieces out, to then read that Gatz's column in the week was kind of, I suppose was disappointed. And I know we made a bit of a joke and things about it, but it was quite, I felt quite frustrated, angry, and I suppose a little bit upset by it, because sort of thought for me, I'm like, this is the guy who's been with you for 10, 15 years or whatever. So I felt a little bit disappointed by it.
So for our listeners and for context, what did Gatz actually say? Because we've read it, but people won't have necessarily.
The general gist of it was sort of I was disappointed with Dan Biggar's reaction to the sending off or to the incident. Probably reflected, or what we needed from him was to be calm for the young team to guide them through that difficult period, etc. So for me, it was like a bit. I mean, again, like Gatz would have known my personality.
Yeah.
I'd have done that 10 years ago. Do it in 10 years' time, exactly the same. Nothing personal against Owen or England or anything.
With a smile.
So I don't know. It just felt a little bit. Just felt a little bit out of. There's no real need for it, and especially given that I'd given the union the opportunity to change or veto anything.
Yeah.
I felt probably a little bit bit down by that. Yeah.
You were just backing your players up.
Yeah, well, that's all it was. Yeah, it wasn't.
Which is what you want, right?
Yeah.
Well, I think so. Yeah, and it wasn't anything to. And like I said, I quite like a bit of a, something to get you going a little bit.
Bit of a scrap.
Yeah. Well, I'm not sure I'd be a very good scrapper, but I like a little bit of pushing and shoving, a bit of feistiness.
And that's what it is.
Adam, didn't you back yourself to come out of that room? Remember the
We had to
conversation?
answer he had to answer a question on who would come out of the room alive out of
You,
them three.
Sexton,
I did. I
and
think I
Faz.
did say.
You backed yourself.
You said Faz would win.
I did say Faz would win. I said that he'd have that northern grit in him.
Maybe he
His
did.
dad.
Yeah, he's basically got our dad, hasn't he? Yeah.
But that's the thing in all this and this moment in time, and we've been spoilt really with yourself, with Johnny, and with Faz to not only have 3 world-class players in the Northern Hemisphere, but the characters that you have and them traits, and you are very similar.
All
I think
3 of them, like from the outside.
From the outside looking in, everyone take away Finn, okay, the outlier from that. But you 3 having done it for so long, and you mentioned Gat saying about them characteristics from a 10 and not being hot-headed. You mentioned Gat saying that and not being hot-headed. But look at Johnny, and we'll get onto his book as well that's come out. Look at Faz. You've got 3 in a generation that have come through. I know you're different players, but are almost identical from a personality point of view.
I wouldn't say there's many cool, calm, collective moments on the field between the 3 of us, really, in the last...
A lot of shouting.
Yeah.
It's great, though.
Yeah.
So
put them in order then, Jim. Best bloke to worst bloke. 1, 2, 3.
No, I'm not doing that. I'll let you know on the books once I've read them both.
Pod.
Rugby Pod.